So this TV deal, what is Neil Doncaster thinking? I'm in awe. Like I genuinely can't believe that he's thinking that this is a good idea. So the deal that apparently is going to be, they're extending the current deal to 2029. It will move up to 60 games, and it'll be £29.5 million per season, which is less than what teams make currently. And Samuel was just saying before the pod that it will move the minimum amount of games they have to show a season up to, what was it, 42?
42, because I think they only showed 41 of a regular season last year. I think it was 43 overall, including playoffs.
And my point was, well, what, shouldn't the minimum just be 60?
Yeah, you should show it. I mean, maybe not 60, because maybe there's here and there someone gets cancelled. So contractually, maybe 55 minimum. Or 56, just because 55 would please Rangers fans too much. Minimum of 56 games, or something like that. If you're going to show 60, actually show 60. They're going to have the rights for 60 and show 45.
Yeah, you already know it, which is so frustrating.
The worst thing is... No, crack on, right?
But the part of this issue is that the fact that it's like they've got these 60 games and they'll probably not show all 60. Oh, my dog's barking. My dog's just going mental downstairs. What?
Did that go on?
She's also raging about these.
Absolutely fuming about
Charlie's an activist.
She's just heard about how much Neil Doncaster makes a year, and she is fuming right now.
She's just thinking about how many bloody squeaky toys he can buy with that money.
Anyway, the issue that we have with these 60 games is the fact that they won't show them all, and then they hold the rights to all games for the Scottish Premiership over the season. So it makes it so no other broadcast. These past couple of minutes.
I just saw him disappear, and me and you looked at each other for like a good 5 seconds.
I was scratching my ear, and I must have double tapped my AirPod.
Ryan was in a really good flow there. Sorry, right.
For audio listeners, Caden just left the call as I was trying to talk about this guy. As you can tell, we haven't done this in a couple of weeks, so it's a little bit funky.
Teething process, if you will.
Get it all out of the system now.
Yeah, exactly. So as I tried to say before Charlie barked and Caden left the call, that Sky hold all the rights to these games, so all 300 games or whatever it is across the season, which means that no other broadcaster can take up these B games that Sky doesn't want to use.
Yeah, so like St Mirren Ross County, right? Don't get me wrong, never getting shown on Sky, ever. However, maybe BBC Alba would show it, or maybe BBC Sport would want to show it, or maybe someone else would want to take it. Who knows? Premier Sports, for some weird reason, might. But it even if they wouldn't want to, they don't have the choice if they did, which is the bizarre thing here for me. It limits choice and it restricts it limits how much we can brand football itself and bring more money in. Like in England, I think there's 4 or 5 different companies who all own the rights, and they share the games about, and it means just about all the games are on telly, and it brings so much money in. Whereas in Scotland, it's just Sky, and it's lazy coverage. They don't care. It's often just poor. Like even BBC Scotland, right? They did the Alkmaar Dundee United game, which we'll get onto. Both games, they didn't even have their own stream. It was someone else, and they were just putting overlay over it and commentator over it, and it was just felt off. It felt low quality and low effort, which is how Sky feels as well. And it just says that we need something to replace that, because at the moment, it feels like people are covering Scottish football because they have to, not because they want to. It's an obligation. It's not a joy. It's not like, oh, we can't wait to show Scottish football off to the world. It's, right, we've got to do this. We're contractually obliged. Blah, blah, blah. And one solution, which I don't know if you guys have heard about, or what you think about it, is the idea of an SPFL streaming service where all the clubs and all the games are optional, and you pay £20 a month, for example, or something like that. I don't know what you think about that, but
that's the dream scenario, really. I think like when
I'd like that.
Yeah, like when you think about like the places like Canada or Australia or stuff like that, when it comes to like Premier League football and stuff like that, or generally sports, I know for a fact one of my friends in Canada, they pay $20 a month. They get all the Premier League games. That's what they pay for every English Premier League game. And so if we could get that for Scotland, that's DOS. I would happily watch St Mirren Ross County this weekend just because it's a game that's on. Yeah. And I don't think they quite realise how much money is in the possibility of streaming. To be honest, I would probably pay a subscription service even if they didn't show all the games. If they just showed a majority of the games, there's a good chance I would have it on and I would pay for that monthly.
I think I saw something where it was in basketball. It's a similar idea. I don't quite know the numbers, but it was like, say, £15 a month just for all of your team's games for that month in the league, and £20 for your team's games and all the other team's games that are on. So, like pay-per-view last season, Saints TV, right? Obviously, it would be so hard to do, but I feel like they could manage it. All the clubs have got their own streaming services set up. They've got all the infrastructures in place, and I cannot remember for the life of me who did it, but there's a streaming service that all the clubs used apart from Celtic. So it's almost like you could just do that. And I would happily pay £15 a month, even though I go to all the Saints games anyway, so it's a bit redundant. But I would pay £20 a month, for example, if I had all the other games anyway. Because I would, if St Mirren Ross County was on and say they'd moved it to a 5:30 kickoff, I've just got through the door, I would probably just watch it.
Yeah, because it's football. We all just want to watch the football at the end of the day.
And not everyone's like us, or like me and Caden who go to football games for our clubs.
What are you saying? I was at Kelly last week. Where was Caden? Was Caden at Motherwell? That's what I thought.
Okay, you fair enough. But like, even for people like us, there's people who cannot make the games at all.
Yeah.
Like, at all. So it just opens it up to people, and some people can't afford to go to the away games, which we're going to come on to, and it just makes football more accessible, having it actually showed, and people who are passionate about Scottish football actually showing it.
Yeah, well, it comes into this whole thing where, like, so say you've got a young Motherwell fan, right? The only way they can realistically watch a Motherwell game is if they're playing an Old Firm team on Sky, and we all know it's probably not going to be an enjoyable viewing for an 8-year-old or a 9-year-old. And then the other option is that they go to the game, but they're 8, so they have to rely on their dad or their mum taking them. So then, how do you expect to cultivate a new generation of fans that don't have any access to actually watching their team play football?
The way that the world is progressing, everything is a lot more digital, and people are used to having things on demand at their hand. Like, you don't have to go out. Some people just aren't quite used to that. And also kids, maybe I know for some people like who have autistic children, for example, they don't actually like going to the football. They like watching it.
Yeah. But
they don't like going to games because it can be really like loud and stuff like that. So it gives another option. And I just feel like you can give more people a chance to actually follow their team by giving a good coverage. I don't see why Sky are so flippant about it. Like, so even last week for the Edinburgh Derby, the match graphic on Sky was Celtic and versus Hibs.
Oh, I didn't see that. I didn't know they did that.
So there was a photo going around last week, and it was the Hibs player on the left and Celtic player on the right, and I think it said Hibs versus Hearts, but they put the wrong player in. You'd think it would stop by now, but it happens every week. I even remember a few years ago, an example, BBC Sport really lazily calling Michael O'Halloran Callum O'Halloran or something, and then Callum Hendry said that his deal was expiring even though he'd been given a 2-year extension. Like, little details just really, it shows a lack of care and a lack of time. Anything outside of the west of Scotland, they don't really care.
Yeah.
Another one there, Samuel, is Sports Scene. They said Elliot Parish was in goals for us and said it was Remy Matthews.
I saw that as
well. Which is a 20-second Google search if you don't know prior.
Also, they get given all the team sheets.
They should know.
So they should know. They've got it in front of them as well. It's not like they've got to memorise 200 players.
Well, what's shocking is that these guys, we're in Scottish football, so they should surely know that there's a level of disrespect. They should want to give a little bit more and actually put a little bit more effort in, because they've surely at one point in time gone, fuck, people really just don't care about what we're doing.
I think so. Just poor.
It's poor.
It's
the other issue that I think we have about this deal is that Neil Doncaster doesn't seem to have any care for it. Yeah, like he has no negotiating power by the looks of things. Like, in what world do you sell your entire league like games to Sky?
Close it off.
Yeah, you sell it all for such a low price, and then you also make it so no other games can be sold to any other rights holders or anything, so just limiting the money.
You're just strangling yourself. And I think also the way he dealt with the Cinch deal.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got so little money for it. I cannot remember the exact figures right now, but if you It'll be in the Scottish Football Deserves More Respect video, I think. Article, sorry. But basically, it was like, what? Was it 6 million for
a 6 million.
Was it a year, or was it for all 4 tiers of Scottish football? Whereas Crystal Palace, for example, have got them on the... Spurs have got them on the sleeve, and that was 10 million a year.
Yeah.
And Crystal Palace have got it on the front of their shirt, and who knows how much that'll be. That'll be...
Yeah, it's around undisclosed.
It just seems like he looks at the deal that they give him.
He doesn't value it.
Yeah. And
he doesn't value Scottish football. He doesn't value the product. And it shows. He undersells it consistently.
Exactly. When you don't value a product, you are more likely to give it away for less than it's actually worth.
Which is it's so bizarre that this man gets to lead these negotiations and these deals.
Old Football Tops is a way of that. Like, if you didn't know an old football top went for 150 quid and you bought a card boot, 20 quid? Yeah, that sounds about right. But it's actually, you can sell it 150 quid on eBay. Not knowing the price of a product and still selling it is just idiotic.
Poor practice. It's poor practice. It's amateurish. I mean, he makes £400,000 a year, you're telling me.
Yeah, I see this number thrown about a lot on Twitter and stuff, and so I googled it, and a couple. He
gave himself a salary increase, I'm pretty sure, a few years ago.
Yeah, he did. Which 400k a year for a man that can't do anything right. And what's even more bizarre about this deal is like, okay, so he's still in the job. We're not getting rid of him by any like month coming. So he's like, okay, let's have another deal, and he's seen all the criticism about the Cinch deal. He's seen the criticism about this current Sky deal. And he's like,
he'll know about all of this.
Yeah, and he's like, let's take less money for more games until 2029, when Scottish football as a league.
Think about how much, even in a silly way, right? Think about how much money inflation will have changed within football by then.
Oh my god, I know.
You're tying yourself down to a contract for the next 7 years based on today's money. I'm not saying it's going to change drastically, but like still, even if Scottish football has changed massively and it's now worth 40 million a year or 50 million, which I believe it is anyway, but it just seems ridiculous. I don't. Why would you extend a deal that everyone's unhappy with and make it less?
It's literally like Sky have came up with a number, and then he's just went. He came onto his desk and he's went, "That'll do."
Yeah,
sure. Sends it back.
Didn't read it.
On Sky in London, like what the fuck?
Exactly, Sky in London, who don't care about the games anyway. They're doing it to save face. BT, as much as people give him criticism, I really enjoyed when we had BT and Sky.
I completely agree. BT actually put a level of care into these.
BT put care in. Yeah. It felt like when you were watching the St Johnstone. So I think I watched St Johnstone Hearts, for example. I mean, we lost, but they actually cared. They'd done their research. It just seemed better. But now that they're looking for a way out of football, I think it's not as profitable as it once was for them. They're not really bidding for it.
Well, it's crazy that 29.5 million per season is what the league is supposed to get. There's players that realistically in this time that with the way Rangers and Celtic are, there's going to be players that are worth more than these deals year on year, which is so bizarre. Like,
I think we were talking about it, but do you see USG? We're going to go, if I can never say their name. USG last week, who Rangers thumped 3-0, as we talked about in the previous podcast, which no one has heard. But no. So the Belgian league is about £96 million a year TV rights, and there's no team in Belgium that's better than Rangers. Maybe Club Brugge and Royal Antwerp are maybe up there, but they're not as good. No. They're not as good as Rangers or Celtic anyway.
Exactly. It's one of those where there are teams who could beat them on a day, but I wouldn't class them over a season.
There's no team that is as good as Celtic or Rangers.
Exactly. Over a season, I don't think they'd top them.
No.
And then when we think about like the level of the league as well and the coefficient rankings and stuff like that, where like FIFA and UEFA and all that rank these teams, these leagues, sorry. Scotland.
They also rank the teams as well somewhere.
Yeah, and they're just above. Yeah. Like they're all above. Like all the bigger teams are the league's
Scottish
bigger.
Teams.
The league's bigger. The teams are stronger depending on who you look at, and yet we sit here with a TV deal that's dwarfed in comparison to theirs.
I have no idea. The only positive about this deal, and I don't know how much of a positive it'll end up being, but it should be a good thing, is the 5 pay-per-view games for each team is a possibility in theory. So Ross County would have been able to move their home game to an early game, for example, as you said in a Google document, and put it on pay-per-view rather than that game just being lost and no one being able to see it.
Yeah.
Apart from watching Sports Scene. So it means that 5 games a season, which I think is a really small amount. It's not even a game a month. Like, so how are you going to pick and choose which games to pay-per-view? You've used one in the first month. Oh, can't use it for 3 months now. I think that's silly. 5 is such a paltry amount, but it's a step up. But
yeah, just because it's a step in the right direction doesn't mean it's necessarily good. Yeah,
it's not even a third of the home games that you get. And let's be honest, anyone other than Rangers and Celtic, like for example Saints, right? We'll have 4 games on Sky this season. All will be against the Old Firm. So if we used our other 5 pay-per-view games, you're still missing out on what? 14 home games, 13 home games, something like that.
Yeah.
12. It depends how many. Just seems stupid to me.
And what you might get lucky and get another 2 away games on other people's pay-per-views.
Yeah, true.
So what it's like, you'll be seeing what tops 12, 13 games on.
There's still 6. For example, even saying that out of the 4 games, 2 of them are Rangers at McDiarmid Park and Celtic at McDiarmid Park are on Sky, right? Then you've got your 5 games. That's 7. So you're missing 11 home games. It's not really a step up by a lot. It just encourages people to seek out illegal streaming services because there are people and a lot of fans are willing to pay the money if A, they know it's going back to the club, B, they know it's a legal service, and C, it's easy to access. People will do it. Yeah. There are people, Saints fans this week, who would happily have paid if Rangers had a pay-per-view option of 12 quid. It just means they're going to be forced into illegal streaming services. Do you think people are going to go, oh, can't watch it, it's not on TV this week, I'll just skip the game? People still want to see their club play.
Exactly.
And cost of living crisis, it's not really affordable to be buying the tickets, which we're going to come on to later. So what are we going to do? Seek out illegal streaming services. And I don't blame anyone who does that. It's on the rise. In this current...
A part of this issue is something that we spoke about just before we started recording, Samuel, while Caden was away taking a piss, was that the 3 p.m. blackout is still in for Scotland and England.
It's been in since the 60s, the blackout. I just don't get it. So it's been brought in, I think, only... Now, I saw something on social media the other day, this might not be true, but I think the only teams who have willingly subscribed to this blackout in Europe this season are England and Scotland.
Why?
So
you just have to
you're just limiting yourself. In England, it doesn't really matter. I mean, it does for lower league teams. For them, it's pretty crap. Yeah. But I guess for them, it may still matter, the blackout, simply because people might choose to watch games on TV, but I don't really believe in that, to be honest.
Right. If you want to watch your TV,
if you're going to watch it on TV, you'll just watch a game later in the day on TV.
Yeah. It's such a dated and archaic model.
Exactly. It's been in UEFA's rules for 60 years now. Think about how much has changed in that time. It's crazy. I mean,
you had a good example where you're like, right, say someone's moved to London, right? They're a Motherwell fan. They moved to London. They're never going to the home game anyway. They're never going to be there because they're in bloody London.
Can't go. Yeah. It's not stopping you going. Even so, I've got family members down in England. If they wanted to watch the Saints game, they can't. You just can't. There is no legal way you can watch the St Johnstone game unless you travel all the way down every week, which people just can't do. So if
you might go up once, twice a season.
Yeah,
but
you go up if you choose a legal option, it is impossible. So it just doesn't make sense. You're just restricting people, limiting people, and you're taking away the privilege of being able to watch your team. Yeah, so why there should be pay-per-view options, obviously regulated. Like there should be maybe some ruling on it, just so it doesn't encroach on Sky. Like games at Sky are showing you can't have pay-per-view. I'm not too bothered about that because it's not great, but there is an option. But when it comes to games that Sky are never going to touch, St Mirren Ross County this weekend, for example, an example I've used a few times already. Who is going to watch that on Sky? Is Sky going to choose it? No. So who can go? Fans who are in attendance and people who watch on illegal streams, and it'll be last on Sports Scene.
Yeah, it ties into this whole thing where I was saying, like, you're just like alongside teams not being able to stream their own games generally and stuff like that, or other broadcasters not being able to show these games. You're just causing, like, they talk about maybe hurting attendance to games, but I feel like by keeping it in, you're inadvertently hurting attendances 5-10 years from now when those kids that could never watch their team can't go.
You're kicking the can just further down the line.
Yeah.
So I've just done a wee Google search, and according to the rules of the Union of European Football Associations, the football associations that agree to the 3 p.m. blackout, we have England, Scotland, and Montenegro.
There we go.
That's unbelievable.
That's so stupid.
And Montenegro,
not the way forward.
beautiful country, but come on now.
That's ridiculous.
Couldn't name a Montenegrese footballer if I tried.
I could. Stefan Jovetic.
Of course he can. Of course he can.
Apart from Stefan Jovetic, because he was very good. Apart from him,
and Marko Vukovic.
I have no idea who he is.
I'm only kidding. That's a made up name. I just might catch up. I
I
can't even remember his name.
I probably should have named Jovetic, but apart from that, I couldn't name you one if you had a gun to mind.
What is his name? It's Vukic. Sorry. Anyway.
So yeah, exactly. It's like, well, what are we benefit? Like, okay, you can maybe push understand England.
Marko Vukovic. There we go. Sorry.
You can maybe at a push understand the lower leagues for England at a push, but for Scotland, your top flight, when most of the games are shown at 3 p.m. because they can't be shown on any other broadcasters, it's shite. It's just such a mess.
Ridiculous. And it's a fact that in England, so many games are broadcast. You'll have a Friday night game, a Saturday morning game, a Saturday night game, two Sunday games, and a Monday night game.
Yeah.
So in Scotland, you've got maybe one Saturday game. No, sorry, one Sunday game at a push. Maybe two.
You know what? I've actually, like, the Mr. FBI, I haven't done this. I've considered it, but I won't.
Mr. FBI.
This is all alleged that I could do this, right? This is
hypothetical.
Hypothetically, right? Hypothetically, I considered getting a VPN and just paying for Rangers TV as if I was in Canada, right? So for 120 quid, I could get every single Rangers game.
You can do the same thing with Cinch TV if you wanted to.
So just say that you're in a different country. And it's like, boom, that way, right? I'm not sourcing out illegal streams. I'm watching my club every week that I can't go see them, like, at home, because, as we're probably going to get into pretty soon, it's bloody expensive to go to football games.
Especially Rangers, and it's also very difficult.